Acapulco, Mexico. This is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have a two-time past guest coming on, Vays. He's been on in the past talking about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, cryptocurrency trading. He's very well known in the cryptocurrency community. But the main reason I'm having him on today is because he's been one of the most vehement anti-Steemit people out there. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, this is a scam, it's a Ponzi scheme, all these sort of things. And I actually don't think it is, but I am very open to hearing why Tone has issues with it, and this is not going to be so much a debate as it is going to be a conversation, because I'm hoping to learn some things from him about what he's discovered about how the currency is created and if it's sustainable, and I want to hear his views on why he's against Steemit in general. I'm also, as people know, I'm quite for it. I've been doing well on it. I know many friends have been doing well on it. I actually, of all the people I know, of all the anarchists I know who have been past Anarchast guests, I think total they've made over $100,000 posting on Steemit so far. So they all like it a lot. But I want to get into the nitty-gritty, the technical details on it, and hear all from Tone on what issues he has about it, and then we'll talk about them here. So this is going to be sort of just a conversation on it. So Tone, great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me on again, Jeff, and also looking forward to your conferences like I do every year.
Yeah, in Acapulco 2017, coming up at the end of February. It's going to be amazing. And Tone, I know that you've been out there. You've actually done a ton of research. I've looked through your research. I find a lot of it very interesting. I'm just not convinced at all that this is some sort of a scam or Ponzi scheme. So why don't you make the case for why you are generally against Steemit?
Well, I would really like to hear your experience on it first before I get into that. Like how you found out about it, were you approached, what have you posted on Steemit, and what your experience has been.
Sure. I was told about it a month or two ago by a few people, and they said, you got to get on Steemit. And I was like, what is it? And they said, it's a blockchain-based social media site. And I said, oh, that sounds interesting, but I have so many other things I'm doing, and I never really looked into it. And then Sterling Lujan, who's a past Anarchast guest and a future Anarcho-Poco speaker, put out a video, and he said, I think this is going to change everything. And I was like, I was so interested in it at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to go on there. And actually went on, and I was not expecting anything. I'd never really been on the site. I just hit submit a story, and I just put the Dollar Vigilante is now on Steemit, because I saw a few other people do that. And I just put like 3 paragraphs about who I am, and I hit post, and I was not expecting anything. In fact, my expectation was that would be it, and that's probably the last I'm going to hear from it, because I knew nothing about it. And it turned out that that post made almost $15,000, and so that got my interest. And then I started looking into it. I'm like, what is this? And then I started looking into it. I found a lot of information from you out there. I found other information. I posted again, and I think I made about $6,000 on that one. And I posted again, I made like $3,000. I found out since that the people who designed the site, especially Dan Larimer, is a big fan of mine, and a lot of the people who are what they call whales on the site are also fans of mine. So what I sort of assumed happened was that many of them just upvoted me. They're happy to have me on there because they probably assumed I probably would talk about it if I was doing well on there, and I did. And then a number of other anarchists got on there: Larkin Rose, Luke Rudowski of We Are Change, Dan Dix of Press for Truth, Rick Velfing of the Pirate Party, all past Anarcho-Poco speakers. You probably met them all. If I didn't mention Larkin Rose, Dragon Anarchist, Amanda Rockwitz, Sterling Lujan, who's been on there for a while, and he's been doing well. And then I know of another one who actually hasn't been on Anarchast before, and he's been on there for a few months, and he's been doing well. And so I saw all that, and they all started doing well, and I've continued to post. I think I've made over 30,000 total in the first week. I've actually put it all into Steem Power because as I look into it, I find this fascinating, and I think to me it's a speculation. It's can this thing work? And again, I don't understand all the fine technical details enough to suggest to anyone, and I have never suggested to anyone to buy Steem, the currency. I've just suggested get on the site, and so far I know many of my friends and many people I know have made money on the site. So that's where I'm at right now, and just saying that this site has the potential to do very well. I can see the incentives built into the site could attract millions of people to the site. I think there's about 60 or 70,000 who are registered right now. I would expect, if things go well, it could have over 1 million users by the end of the year, and then it could really go exponential, because once people like Kanye West and Justin Bieber and all these people find out you can post on there and make money, and I'm not saying just them, but even people less famous as them, but other people who have a following, for example, a person who has maybe 500,000 people following them on YouTube, or a blog that gets hundreds of thousands of people going to it, once they find out about it and they post on there and they make $1,000 on a post, or 2,000 or even more, they'll start to go there, then they're going to bring their whole audience. So I see this as being potentially quite big, but very speculative. We don't know. This has never been done before, as far as I know, having a cryptocurrency-backed, blockchain-based social media site. And the way that they've set it all up is quite confusing, and that's why I wanted to have you on. One of the reasons I want to have you on, because I know you've looked into it. So that's been my experience so far. No loss whatsoever. All my friends have made money. Numerous people who I know who have gone to the site say they really like it, and they're going to use it instead of Facebook now. So that's been my experience so far. Oh, and just to quickly answer, I think you were kind of questioning if I had some sort of a financial reason, or if I have invested in it in the past, or if I knew these people beforehand and we did some sort of a deal. No, that's absolutely not.
Well, I was more curious about that. Generally, whether my biggest question on that front was whether you were approached by just friends that were using the site, or people that for a fact were involved in putting Steemit together.
Yeah, it was just friends. It was Sterling Lujan was the first person. There was another guy who's not well known. His name's Adil, who I've talked to for a number of years. He's just an anarchist. I actually didn't know who ran the site until after the first day when I posted, and I found out it was Dan Larimer and Ned. I don't know his last name. I immediately tried to get a hold of them, and it turns out Dan's a fan of mine, so I got a hold of them and did an Anarchast interview with them. But that was the first time I'd even heard of either of them. I had heard of BitShares, but I didn't know anything about it, so I really knew nothing about it.
I've been critical of BitShares in the past as well. BitShares is, in my opinion, was a failed project, and with people putting money into it, and it was a failed project, and now Dan Larimer is going after another one. So, I mean, I've been critical of Dan Larimer in the past. I was initially critical of Steemit before even I knew that Dan Larimer was involved in it, and then I briefly looked into it for about 10 minutes, and then I was critical of it in a podcast. And I got dozens of comments of people like calling me uneducated and you don't know anything and go read the white paper. So I made an effort to read this 44-page white paper. And the moment I opened the white paper, I see Dan Larimer as the first name in that white paper. And then I go, oh my God. Like, that automatically told me that this is going to be a disaster. And I've been going through it page by page, pointing things out. But there was something very interesting that you said. So, like you say, you made about $30,000 worth of Steem, and you have it all in Steem Power. So you haven't actually cashed out a single dollar from anything you earned in the post. Is that right?
No, that's actually not right. I didn't mention that. So after my first post, I started seeing people saying, oh, it's a scam. You can't actually take out the money. And so I tried to take it out. So I decided to try to take out about $1,500 worth, about 3 Bitcoin worth that day. To do that, I transferred it from the Steem dollars to Polonianex, I think you pronounce it, exchange. Yeah. And on there, I just traded it for Bitcoin. So I had 3 Bitcoin sitting at Polonianex, or whatever, however you pronounce it. And then after that, I started to get excited about it. So every Steem dollar I made after that, I just started powering up, because I was like, okay, well, this is very interesting. This is very early stages of a new concept, and I'm a speculative investor. I'm a venture capitalist. This is money that I really was not expecting to even have, $30,000. Why not pump it all back into this thing? And that'll be my sort of speculative investment. And if this thing really takes off, maybe I'll do really well. And if it goes to zero, I really just lost a week's worth of just posting a few posts on Steemit. But I did take it out, and I do know others. Larkin Rose has made well over $5,000 now, I think, and he took all of it out. I just saw on the Steemit postings, and he had no problem taking it out. I know Luis Fernando Misas, a past Anarchast guest, who's fairly big on there under Emancipated Human. He also hosts Anarchast Espanol. He's taken out funds. Amanda Rockwitz has taken out funds. So I've never heard of anyone not taking it out.
I'm not disputing that you can't take it out. I was just curious whether you did or not.
Yes, I did. And then I actually put it back in, though.
So then you put that same money back in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't actually. So at the moment your banked profit is zero.
Right, because it's locked up in Steem Power. Yes.
Right. You took it out in order to make sure that you can, and then you just put it back in.
That's right.
Okay, no, that's fine. But you also you're a person I would call an accredited investor, right? I mean, it's not your first rodeo. So you know how to invest in projects, and you're finding it interesting. So you're actually in a slightly special category. Right. So for you, it's fine. I wouldn't recommend you to take it out. And I know you can take it out. I did a video debate over Steem with the Steem user, and I said I knew he was going to post it onto the Steem website. And I said, you know what, I don't want any of the funds. You can split it 50-50 with the moderator of our debate. And you can withdraw half the money that the post made within 24 hours, right? So after the post goes up for 24 hours, whatever value it made, and it's about 24 hours. They have a complicated formula. There's no reason to get into it. But after the first 24 hours plus, you can withdraw half the value of that post. So they were able to withdraw $3,000 because the post made $6,000. They were able to withdraw $3,000, and then they split it 2 ways. So they got $1,500 each, and I was happy that they made that money. And the rest, it goes into Steem Power, and to power up Steem Power is instant. It becomes Steem Power, and then to power down Steem Power takes 2 years with. And you get a fraction of it every week. So if you're going to power down $30,000, so 1/104th of that you have access to it every week, so that after 2 years, your entire $30,000 can be withdrawn, right. 1 week at a time.
Yep.
Okay, so here's why I'm critical. I'm critical on it from several ways. Besides the fact that it's a fairly complicated system with a lot of monetary theory, and I don't think any of these guys are, real economists, and but again, that's a more technical question. The thing is, it was. I also question whether it's a blockchain or not, but the way Steem started out, earlier this year, before anyone's heard of it, there was a proof of work, kind of like a Bitcoin proof of work system, where you use electricity and mining capability to basically earn the Steem. And this is before Steem became popular, so you can say, just like in Bitcoin, no one knew about Bitcoin back in 2009. So people like Satoshi and Hal Finney and, some of the other early miners. I don't know how early Brock Pierce was there, but I know he was there pretty early, and Trace Mayer. So these guys knew about it fairly early, and they mined it before anybody else knew about it. But back then, it was worthless. Nobody knew whether it was going to be anything. So Steemit had a similar kind of mining structure, but this competition for mining ended within the first few months because they have 3-second block time. Like Bitcoin is a 10-minute block time. Their blocks are 3 seconds. So it's very, very fast mining. And after the first 800,000 blocks, but with each block taking 3 seconds, I don't want to do math on live air. So my best guess is probably in a few months or less, this mining was over. And after this mining was over, that's when, Steemit became introduced to a lot of people, and people started to post on the site. But the competition for these coins had already ended. And now Steemit is a proof of stake system. It's 95% proof of stake. with 100% inflation. So basically, what's happening right now is that about 45 people have over 50% of all Steem Power. And about 215 people have over 80%, if not more, of all Steem Power. So these people, without putting any effort or any work into the system, will double the amount of Steem they have every single year. To me, this is not a blockchain, because it's just basically they're creating value out of thin air and paying it to themselves for creating it very early. So this is my biggest problem with this system. And the way Steem Power works is that these early adopters, these early people, they actually have power, right? Like early people in Bitcoin, yes, they have a lot of Bitcoin, but that's all they have. All they can do is sell this Bitcoin, or if they want to invest it, they can invest it. But these people with the early Steem, they actually have the power to upvote. So when you post a simple article, and no, I know you're a popular guy, but no offense, your simple article on Steemit is not worth $15,000. No offense, Jeff. And these people voted you up in order for you to make some of this money, because they're on paper, they're worth millions and millions of dollars. So for them giving up $15,000 of some of that power in order for you to promote Steem is basically nothing for them. But the users you bring in is a lot. And you are okay like putting all of this back. You're not actually losing anything. But the reason why a Steem token is worth $1.50 is because someone is actually buying that token. So by you promoting Steem, it's causing other people that don't have this kind of power to post a simple article and earn a lot of Steem Power that they can then use to throw around. And honestly, your $30,000 in Steem Power is nothing for upvoting compared to some of these early adopters. But other people believe that Steem is good, and they're going to have to buy into the system. Steemit is nothing without people actually putting Bitcoin into the system and buying it. And this allows those early adopters a chance to get out while still doubling their Steemit every year for actually doing nothing. I don't know if you want to jump in, because I have a little more to say, but I don't know if you have a comment at this point.
Well, yeah, you brought up a lot of things. Let's just start with Dan Larimer. You already had sort of a negative connotation with him because of his involvement in BitShares, which you saw as a failed project. I know nothing about that, but that's sort of interesting because it kind of skews you right off the bat. And I just want to say one thing as an entrepreneur who's had numerous business failures, that I don't just say something is bad just because a person who had a problem in the past is trying something new. I just want to mention that. Now, you brought up how they mine most of it themselves. And here's the way that I've looked at it so far is with Bitcoin, you're right. And actually, of course, Satoshi owned 100% of Bitcoin when it first started. He was the first person to get Bitcoin. But Bitcoin was always intended to be essentially money. Steem isn't necessarily intended to be that. It's intended to be a currency that backs a social media network. So when I look at, they mined a lot of it beforehand, and they own most of the people who were involved in the early days own most of it right now. That looks the same to me as someone who tries a startup and they want to compete with Facebook. The entrepreneurs who started that would own 100% of that company until they took in equity investment. So in my opinion, that doesn't necessarily make it bad either. It's interesting. We definitely have to look at the numbers to see if any of this is sustainable over time. But it doesn't look any different to me than any sort of startup does. So I think it's a really interesting mix of a cryptocurrency with a startup. And I understand your concerns. And actually, I do know from talking to people and reading on the site that that is most of the main concerns that almost everyone who's on Steemit has right now is the whales have too much power. Apparently now they're powering down is what they say. One interesting thing that you brought up, though, that you don't think it's a real blockchain. That's very interesting to me. And I actually have heard some talking about this. And I heard that the current sort of the miners of Steem, the people who are actually running the blockchain, are all sort of the early founders. And so people have concerns about that, about how legitimate of a blockchain it is. That is, in my opinion, a very valid concern. And I do know that I've heard that they're trying to get others to begin mining it now so that it's not so centrally held.
Right, but see, that's the thing, though. Their mining is only 1 out of every 20 blocks, right? So the actual mining part, again, to me, this is very, very scammy because they're calling it a hybrid mining structure between proof of work and proof of stake, but it's 95% proof of stake and only 5% proof of work. I'm sorry, to me, that's not a hybrid. If you want to call it a hybrid, I want to see at least a 50-50, and even then I would question it. But everything is set up to basically have the minimum amount of something in order to call it something else. So they're basically they have blocks every 3 seconds, and then every 21st block is a Bitcoin style proof of work, and the other 20 blocks are proof of stake. So the more you have, the more you earn. So again, like that's the problem with that mining structure, which I think is absolutely terrible. And I also don't understand where the security comes from, and I don't even understand why mining is needed, because I'm not sure what part they're actually decentralizing. Right? They're creating this Steemit out of thin air and just giving it to those that already have Steemit. They can do that without a blockchain, right? It's just an algorithm that's doing it. And as far as posting content, we know that's not decentralized, right? I mean, try to post a very, very inappropriate article on Steemit and it's going to immediately be taken down by the admin of the website, right? I mean, we don't really have a decentralized website. But what? Not the words. Maybe it goes into their blockchain, but
right.
You still got to publish it on the internet. I mean, the internet is not exactly. I mean, it's decentralized to a point. It's decentralized.
My understanding is if you post something, once it gets on, it's actually in the blockchain and it cannot be changed. So even if you change it afterwards, you just edit it, but those edits are actually recorded in the blockchain. Now you're right, you can flag the content, which will make it so it won't be seen as much, or it might not even be seen at all if enough people flag it, but it's still actually in the blockchain. So if someone actually could start up a new Steemit site, they could call it whatever, Vays Steemit site, and you could actually, if I understand it correctly, log into the blockchain and actually produce that content on your site, and you could actually produce the works that have been flagged on Steemit on your site, if I understand it correctly.
Well, we'll see. Well, that's going to be put to a test very, very soon, in my opinion. So we'll see about that.
This is all very new and very speculative, so that's what we're talking about here, and it's interesting to hear your thoughts on it. As far as me going on and doing very well, of course you're right, but I look at it as if I was just starting up a new Facebook and I knew a guy who was just coming on this site, had a big following, who would all be really into this new site, and if we were giving out rewards to people who post, I would definitely be giving that person rewards, of course, because you're essentially an owner, you're an equity holder in the concept, in the platform. So it actually just makes sense that they would do something like that. I don't see that as being necessarily particularly scammy. If I understand it correctly, all these things are all contracts. The Steem Dollar, the Steem Power are all part of a contract, almost like a Ethereum contract, the type of cryptocurrency blockchain sort of contracts, and it's all out there for people to see, if I understand it correctly. So the scam part. Now, here's the only way I could see the scam part, and actually, it is possible this is the case. So if a person like Dan Larimer, he had this problem with Bit shares, he comes up with another scam. I'm just brainstorming how this could be, and he's like, okay, we'll make it so we own most of this new social media platform, and we'll give people rewards, which will get everyone really excited. They'll all go on it, and people will even start putting money into it because they're so excited about it, and then we'll siphon all the money out. That could be the case, but that's actually impossible, really, to prove that's the intention, or is the intention to build this massive social media site?
I mean, if this. In my opinion, if this media site does take off, which I don't believe that it will be like, It will be incidental. I think it is meant to be cashed out. And what you just described...
Wouldn't they have it in their best interest to make the site as big as possible and get everyone excited about it and get it up to a $5 billion market cap of Steem and then start to cash out at least, though?
No, and why? Because of the power up, right? So they would be looking to cash out earlier because here's the problem with it, right? The reason why Steem has such a big market cap, right? And the reason why your account is worth $30,000 US is because the last Steem token that was traded, I mean, a Steem token gets traded every second, let's say, on Poloniex, right? So every time there is a trade, which happens every second, there is a price. So I think the most recent price, let's ballpark it at $1.50, and I think the all-time high for Steem was about $4 per token, right? So if a Steem price is about $1.50 on the cryptocurrency charts, that price is applied to every Steem that exists, including Steem Power. But over 90% of all Steem tokens are in Steem Power. So 90% of Steem cannot be traded. So what we're talking about here is less than 10% of the actual tokens in circulation are being actively traded. And because of that, that is a very, depressed amount of tokens that are out in circulation. So the supply of tokens is very, very, this is on purpose, right? Because of the 2-year-long power down at 1/152nd, basically 1 week at a time. So because of that, there is a very contracted amount of Steem that is up for sale, which means that the price is artificially high, right? Because in the world of Bitcoin, assuming Satoshi's 1 million Bitcoins or whatever are out of circulation, and maybe 10% of Bitcoins are lost forever, best guess, that still means that there are probably a good 13 million Bitcoins that could hit the market tomorrow in a panic. With Steemit, that can't happen, right? It's the complete opposite. Instead of 10% being lost, only 10% can actively be traded. But the last price applies to all of the Steem Power, which I also believe is unfair. So who knows? Maybe it'll get popular, it'll go up. But at this rate of inflation, and early adopters will be looking to cash out so that the people buying into Steem Power right now, like you did when you put your 1,500 back in, these are the people that they want to transfer all this liability to because they want to free themselves of this liability. And look, we both hate regulation. I'm with you on regulation, but you have to admit, we need some kind of regulation for insiders of companies that are especially going to pitch equity of their companies to non-qualified investors. And this is what the crypto space is. They want to try to get as many unqualified investors as early as possible. They think they're doing them a favor because everyone should be an owner of everything. But 90% of all these initiatives in the crypto space have been scams, and you have to be skeptical of all of them from the beginning. Even Bitcoin, people should have been skeptical of Bitcoin from the beginning. I wasn't. I kind of thought it was interesting in the beginning, but most of the projects that came out after, if you were skeptical, you were almost definitely right.
No, absolutely. This space is definitely highly risky. As far as regulations, no, I absolutely don't think the government should regulate anything. I don't think there should even be a government. I think people should take responsibility for themselves and look into things themselves before they put their money into it. And as far as the people putting their money into it, and again, I have never, and I still haven't, said that anyone should buy Steem dollars or Steem Power or Steem the currency, I guess, is what you would be buying.
Right, but Jeff, I gotta cut you off for that. If no one buys it, then it's not worth anything, right? The only, I mean, this is...
Well, here's the thing, though, too. Like, I'm not saying people should, but I actually understand. The reason I have done part of the power-ups on Steem is because the site actually is very well incentivized to make it so you want to have more power on the site. It's actually human nature. I don't know if you saw, but a guy named Bernie Sanders, of all people, on Steem, downvoted one of my posts so much. He's actually one of the big whales, by the way. He thought I was posting something that was just,
I'm not surprised. He loves socialist system.
Yeah, I know. Of all people, Bernie Sanders is taking my wealth and redistributing it to everyone else. But he basically was doing that, and what happened after that was like I felt like, man, I want more Steem Power so people can't do that to me. And you'll see people doing that. So I can actually see how the site itself builds in incentives for people to actually want to power up their Steem, which actually will make the site last longer. It'll be more sustainable over time as that money's locked up for a few years. And so it actually, in my opinion, is quite geniusly incentivized. And there's been many other things. World of Warcraft, I believe, sells, or you can buy and sell things on there. There's like things on eBay you can buy and sell. People like those sort of things where you can kind of power up. There was even a site like Reddit, I forget what the name was, and they actually had a way that you could actually pay to get your votes up more, and you can downvote other people more, and it was quite successful from what I heard about it. So in that sense, I think it's fine. I think anyone investing in Steem Power because they think it might go up, that's obviously a speculative investment. I've been doing it because I think it's decent. I actually haven't put any money I haven't made on Steemit into Steem because I'm making enough on Steemit that I could put 30 or 40,000 in, and if this thing goes up 10 times over the next 2 years, which is totally possible, it is possible, I could see this thing catching on. It might be worth $500,000 in a couple of years. It might also be worth zero. So I understand where you're coming from, but I don't see how. I understand. Be totally critical of it. Be totally, make sure you know what you're doing if you're ever going to put even a penny into it. But I could see a lot of people speculating in this, especially as it starts to catch on. And they just started with Steemit beta. They're already working on numerous other things. They're improving the site all the time. I could see a Steemit Twitter, which would be based off the same blockchain. I could see people like Milo Yiannopoulos going to that and saying, hey, no one can censor me on here. He's got like millions of followers. He's also a speaker at Anarchast, and he could, just numerous people like that moving on to the platform. And then people get on there. Maybe they want to power up. Maybe let's put $20 on so I can help get this post higher or things like that. I can see how it could definitely work. And I can see how this is like a startup company in that the owners own most of it right now. It's in its very earliest stages. It could totally fail, absolutely. But I could also see why people might want to speculate in the currency because it could do well.
Yeah, there's a few comments I want to make on that. And again, I don't have a problem with, the owners of that company, having ownership, but the owners of that company also need to have some liabilities, right? You can't have, anything risk-free, right? I mean, anyone the guys that created Uber, the guys that created Airbnb, like any company, there's always risks involved. And what happens in the crypto space is that these guys don't actually have risk. I mean, Garza faced a little bit of risk with Paycoin because he got a little overboard. He could have got away with it very, very easily. I mean, look at Paul Verne of Cryptsy. He got away with it, took people's Bitcoin and ran away to China. And I'm not saying we need government regulation, but we can have our own code regulation, right? I mean, these guys, I don't believe that they are open about what they have. They can have multiple accounts. I mean, I know Dan Larimer has his public account, but he could have had private accounts. I also believe that these insiders that make these things, I mean, remember, yes, you're right. They could hold on to this equity for a while, but they could have also cashed out half of it already because the other half is perpetually doubling in the amount, right? You see, like what happens.
But it's also inflating at 100%, so it's actually not really changing in value over time.
No, but they're doubling their coins, right? Because again, what happens in something like Facebook, right? Those that got early pre-IPO shares, the Zuckerberg and the other people that were involved, or the companies that you started, and you dish out early equity to your co-founders or early developers. I mean, these are public. I mean, yes, they're government regulated, but they don't have to be government regulated. They could be privately regulated. They could be code regulated, but they need to be regulated somehow so that these people aren't immediately dropping onto other bag holders, especially unqualified ones, within the first week of launch. And remember, most companies go years before they go IPO, and even early IPO investors are way more qualified than your average Reddit user that are buying in on these things. So there's a lot of issues that I have here, and we don't know if these insiders are already cashing out. My suspicion is that they are, but we don't know. And I have the same criticism of a project like Ethereum, where not only did they sell a token that didn't exist up to the tune of millions of dollars, they also created 11 million Ethereum tokens just for themselves and dished it out to their own insiders. They just created it out of thin air, and they could have cashed out of it the next day. Usually when you have IPOs like this, these insiders are almost required to hold them for a little longer than a week after a product is offered to a user. I know a lot of them cash out on the IPO, but in the crypto space, it's like the IPO is the day you announce your project to the world and you immediately cash out. To me, that is just absolutely wrong. You haven't even proved that your project is a success of any kind, and you're from it. And if it doesn't work, who's left holding the bag? Millions of unqualified investors. And I just think that's wrong.
Well, your concerns are valid. I don't know, as you don't either, and maybe it's not even possible to know exactly what they're doing or how they're holding it. But I do think that there's absolutely no need for government regulation. And I think you're totally right that it should be code regulated. It should also be regulated by the community itself. And that's sort of what you're doing. So what you're doing by saying you're concerned about this and that you think it might just be something set up so that a few people can make a lot of money and no one else will really end up making much money at all, or even losing a lot of money. That actually I've seen the price of Steem go down quite a bit in the last week, and I think partially it's because of what you've been doing. So you're kind of putting that out there. You're doing that's how regulation should be. It should all be just put out there by regular people. People should be making their own decisions if they want to invest in it. And again, like I said, I've never told anyone to invest one penny in it. I'm just saying if you go on the site right now and if you have a decent following and you're a good writer, you can make some decent money right now, and that's quite valuable to a lot of people. You brought up one thing though. You said 90% of it is locked up right now. So the other thing you're saying is you think the founders have gotten a whole lot of Steem and they're just going to put it off on the market. But isn't their Steem also quite locked up?
No, it is locked up. But again, because they were so far ahead, they're withdrawing. I'm just speculating here. I have no evidence of this, right? But if they chose to power down, right, they're still making a lot on the back end because of the proof of work structure. You see, in Bitcoin, yes, Satoshi had 1 million Bitcoins, and he probably had 90% of all the Bitcoins, halfway into 2009, with his 500,000, 1 million Bitcoins when there were only like a little over a million Bitcoins out there. But once other people joined the mining structure, he was basically out of luck, right? I mean, unless he's going to spend it to buy more computing power, right? He was no longer to make new Bitcoin because the free market has outcompeted him in the game of mining. This isn't the case with Steem, which is my biggest criticism of it. These early adopters control all this Steem, and now they get to make more of it. It's not like Zuckerberg is making more and more shares. Because he's not inflating the shares of Facebook every year by 100%. I mean, yes, Facebook can split, but then the price immediately goes down. But in this case, they're trying to have as many people lock up as much Steem Power as they can, holding it for the future. And if they choose to slowly power down, they're still making new Steem on the back end because of this proof of stake, and I'm a big critic of proof of stake. And one last comment I gotta make is what you said was very interesting. The price of Steem has gone down, and I know I'm one of the biggest critics of Steem publicly, and I do believe I had something to do with that. And honestly, it makes me a little bit nervous because there's a lot of people that could be worth, dozens of millions of dollars instead of just $1 million or $2 million. And it does worry me a little bit, a slight fear for my safety of what happens when you prevent people from, if you expose something for others. And I learned this after the 2008 crisis, where there was an interview with a guy that was talking about Bernie Madoff after Bernie Madoff got arrested. And this guy was basically saying that he's been following Bernie Madoff's funds for years and trying to warn the SEC, and he was always doing it anonymously, and probably why the SEC never took him seriously. And the reason why he was doing it anonymously, because he feared for his life that if Madoff had friends at the SEC and Bernie Madoff got his hands on his name, then his life would be in jeopardy, because that is $1 billion, not $1 billion, but $100 million Ponzi scheme, and Bernie is a very rich man. So that is something I think about when I go after these things. Am I really safe when someone that just made millions of dollars, and I'm trying to expose them, the kind of power they can do with that money?
Yeah, welcome to my world. I expose the Federal Reserve and the government constantly. I'm surprised I'm still alive. The life's kind of dangerous, and especially if you're trying to expose people who you think are doing the wrong thing. That's just something you have to deal with. But I appreciate you putting out your information out there and letting people make up their own mind, make their own decision on what they think of it before they put in one penny into it, for whatever reason they might want to, whether it's speculation or just to have more power on the Steemit site or whatever it is. Interesting point that you made, though, about you kind of make 2 points that are kind of I don't know what the word is, they kind of go against each other. The one is that you say they have too much power, but at the same time, you're saying, oh, but now they're cashing out. And what I've seen on the Steemit site is a lot of people are complaining. So this is the market talking. They're saying, oh, we're not sure we want to be on this site if it looks like just a few people control everything. So it looks like the whales have started to say, okay, we're going to start to power down our Steem, which you could say is, oh, look, they're selling all this. This is all a big scam, and now they're selling into the market. But at the same time, you're saying they have too much power, and the only way they can power out is to get out of, to power down of it.
Right. No, I can explain this, right? And this is my problem with, this is what I've been trying to explain. Like if people think that Satoshi, has too much power with his 1 million Bitcoins, he can start selling those Bitcoins and now he has less. But the way Steem works is they can start selling their Steem, but they're actually making more Steem, because remember, they're still double their Steem every year. So as long as
it inflates at 100% a year, right?
It inflates 100% a year. So
if they double their coins and it inflates 100% a year, they're not actually gaining more wealth or more value from it.
They are, right? Like as long as they sell 49% of their Steem in a year, they're still made more Steem by the end of the year, because they're just getting it for nothing.
Right, but if it's inflating at 100% per year, the price should go down by about 50% per year, right?
We don't know because the price is very difficult to judge, because not everyone is powering down their Steem, right? I mean, again, like people like you were the perfect example, and the person that I debated is a perfect example. They even bought in to have more power. The way you explained it, Jeff, everyone is incentivized to lock up their Steem to have more Steem power, as the early insiders are trying to get out. But as they get out, the 100% inflation still makes them richer than you, because they have so much more Steem power. So as long as they liquidate only 30% of their Steem, they're still making way more. They're going to end up with even more Steem. at the end because of that inflation.
Right, but the price should go down because of that inflation. Now, if it goes up, that's because people see a potential in it and are investing in it for whatever reason. There's speculation this could be the next Facebook, or they want more Steem Power on the site because of the incentives to do that. So I don't see it quite as black and white as it's a total scam and that they're just going to rip everyone off. I think it could just be set up in a way that's very interesting. It's a new way to set things up. You look at Facebook, who makes the most from Facebook? When I post on Facebook, I make nothing every single time. I've got 15,000 people following me on Facebook, and who makes the most money from every single post? Mark Zuckerberg. I think he's the biggest shareholder of Facebook still. And
yeah, he should be.
Yeah. So, and he is, if the Facebook price goes up, he makes way more money than I do. So I don't see it as totally nefarious as you do, but I do appreciate your opinion on it. And we definitely will find out in the next year or two, if this thing is still around in a year or two, how correct you were on it. Either we'll find out that this was pretty much set up as a scam, and then most people stop using it over a period of time as they start to realize that, or it might take off and a lot of people do quite well, and then we're just going to have to see how it develops from there.
Yeah, no, we definitely will. I mean, so far my claim to fame has been calling the Dow exactly like it happened just a few weeks prior.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that.
I can send you the video. It's me saying on there, you guys are about to lose all your Ethereum. It's about to just disappear. I warned everyone. Yeah, I can send you the video. So we'll see. This is my next one. So we'll see. Hey, listen, I could be wrong, but I also don't think you can run an economy and a currency on blog posts. I always say, look, I know you have a lot of followers. I have a bunch of followers now, and I provide free content. I just have a little donation button on my blog. And look, there's very few people whose content is worth a lot of money. Our individual content, our Facebook posts, our individual videos. I mean, Jeff, you as a content creator is worth something, but an individual video, an individual post, I'm sorry, they're not worth all that much, and I don't see how you can build an economy on top of that.
Well, one way to respond to that would be to say that that's all Facebook is millions and millions of posts, and how much money do they make every year?
Right, but in aggregate,
right.
I mean, unless you're...
No, eventually, I think what's going to happen with Steemit, like right now, it's still very early. So the people who have a big following who get on there now, and especially if people who are already on the site or already following them, like myself, they're doing very well. But I would not doubt it whatsoever if in 3 to 6 months, the most that anyone makes per post is like $500, because there'll be so many posts, so it'll start to get spread out. So, I think just looking at it how it is today is not necessarily how it's going to be in the quite near future. This is very rapidly evolving. It's actually fascinating to watch. For anyone's interested in money, because this is also another sort of attempt at creating a money. If you're interested in that, that's fascinating. If you're interested in cryptocurrency and blockchain, fascinating. If you're interested in just how businesses do and how they take off and what kind of incentives they offer to get growing, that's fascinating. The whole thing's actually quite fascinating to me. But I can actually see.
No, you're right, it is. And honestly, nothing I say would make a difference, right? If Steemit works or it doesn't work, it's irrelevant what my opinion is, right? Like, no one's opinions about Bitcoin in the early days mattered whether Bitcoin was going to be a success or not. Either it's legit and it's a success, or it's not and it fails in the crypto space. So
absolutely.
Opinions can only have a very short span, and it's the longevity of the project. It's completely independent.
Absolutely. So maybe by the time Anarchapulco rolls around in February, we'll have more insight into whether this is all going to work or not, or how it's all going. So we'll definitely be talking on the beach here at the end of February at Anarchapulco. Do you want to finish up with any final comments and let people know where they can follow you? I actually didn't know that you had called the DAO so well. So maybe I don't know about your blog or where you're writing. So let people know. Yeah,
I've been all over the place because I've mostly been traveling. The best place is just Twitter, tone_LLT. I gotta see, maybe I'll change it to Tone Vays. That's how everybody knows me. The video blog that I'm always on, I'm on the World Crypto Network all the time. The Bitcoin group is the main one. I've been trying to cross-post on my blog, the Liberty Life Trail, and this is my thing for the week. I'm gonna cross-post all of the latest videos. onto there. So going forward, people can just go to my blog, Liberty Life Trail. All the latest videos will be there. And hopefully my own personal blog, video blogs are going to come out soon. I got to get back into the trading game and doing more technical analysis videos on prices of Bitcoin, gold, oil. A lot of people were interested in Acapulco. And I'll close on that thought. I stood on stage at Acapulco last year, and everyone was waiting for the market crash. And I stood there and I said, the stock market will go up. It will go up. You're going to see new highs. I'm going to stand there in February of 2017, and I will talk to you about how we are at a new all-time high in the stock market. And 6 months later, they just made another new high today. So I've been right there. So we'll see how it goes the next 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fascinating 6 months ahead, in my opinion. Why don't you post some blog posts on Steemit?
No, people are gonna torture me for that one. I think
it'd be funny if you posted on there and you started making some money. It'd just be funny.
I know, but I think I've burned that bridge. I mean, if it's the new Facebook in 10 years, I'm gonna be the one made fun of, and I'm gonna hold out as long as I can. I'll probably might be the person in the first world. Not to have a Steemit account. Well, I use. It's going to be hard. But hey, if I'm wrong, I'll admit it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your opinion, and I totally agree that this is a totally speculative thing. It could go either way, absolutely, but I'm more on the side of hoping it really does work, because I actually want to see all these social networks get more decentralized. I'd like to see more of the money that's made from them actually go to the content producers, which would be great. And so I love the concept in general, but as far as the future of it, nobody knows. It's a speculation. If you're going to put money into it, it's totally at your own risk, and you don't need no government regulator bureau rat there to tell you yes or no, you can't. So that's it for Anarchast. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.